Are you visiting Berlin and only have a short amount of time to explore the city? Or maybe you are looking to be efficient in your exploration of Berlin. Hi, I'm Steve with Experience Berlin Tours, and in this video I'm going to walk you through a one-day itinerary of Berlin starting at 9 a.m. in the morning and ending sometime in the evening. This itinerary follows closely the route of our Berlin in a Day walking tour, which I will leave a link to in the description below. And as a side note, just about everything suggested here is free of charge, though you may need to make a few reservations in advance to ensure that you execute this itinerary without a hitch. So with that, let's get started. Your first stop of the day is one of Berlin's best free attractions, the Training Palace, or in English, the Palace of Tears. It's located in the heart of Berlin, just outside of the Friedrichstraße S and U-Bahn station. During the partitioning of Berlin, it served as a border crossing station, processing visitors from West Germany as well as visitors from other countries. Translated into English as the Palace of Tears, the name is mainly the result of tearful goodbyes that residents of the GDR experienced saying goodbye to their family members. Today, it is a museum focusing on the division of Germany and the erection of the Berlin Wall. There are audio and visual stations as well as photographs and tangible items to help tell the story. It also tells the story of how this checkpoint worked, and you can even experience the process by walking through passport control. There is an audio tour to guide you along. The museum is open at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays through Fridays and at 10 a.m. on weekends. The museum is closed, unfortunately, on Mondays. Most visitors spend between 30 to 60 minutes here. For this itinerary, we split the difference. Now, head into Friedrichstraße station and follow the signs for the S-Bahn lines S1, S2, and S25 heading northbound. It's just 2 stops to your next destination, Nordbahnhof S-Bahn station, Ghost Stations exhibit. From the S-Bahn platform, you need to climb 1 flight of stairs to reach an exhibit called Border and Ghost Stations. Nordbahnhof station was one of 16 stations on U and S-Bahn lines that were located either on the border between East and West Berlin or completely inside of East Berlin. The lines all started in the west and passed through the east and then returned to the west. Nordbahnhof was a ghost station, which meant that nobody got on or off the train here. The trains just passed through West Berlin passengers. The name Ghost Station was coined by West Berliners due to the sinister atmosphere of these dimly lit and heavily patrolled stations. The exhibit here explains how the East German government sealed off these tunnels to stop escape attempts from citizens, rail workers, and even the guards themselves. It also covers how citizens from both East and West Berlin experienced these ghost stations. It should take you no more than 20 minutes to read everything. When you are finished, take the exit down the corridor to Gartenstraße and the Berlin Wall Memorial. There are several places in Berlin to see the wall in situ, with the most famous location being the East Side Gallery. But if you really want to learn about the border crossing, then you have to come here to the Berlin Wall Memorial. Bernauer Straße was witness to some of the most dramatic early attempts of escape and became a symbolic area for resistance to the wall and the regime behind it. And shortly after the wall fell in 1989, locals here organized to save at least a small section from wall peckers and land developers. And thus the Berlin Wall Memorial was born. It stretches 1.5 kilometers along Bernauer Straße from Nordbahnhof station and consists of 4 sections. Through plaques, memorial markers, audio, as well as visual aids, the memorial explains the border's construction, development, and maintenance. It also covers how the barrier blocked off streets, removed buildings, churches, cemeteries, anything that got in its way. Most notably, the memorial contains the monument, a relatively well-preserved section of the intact border wall system, containing both an inner and outer wall, the death strip, and a watchtower. And more than a fair share of the escape tunnels bored their way underneath Bernauer Straße. Most importantly, it honors the victims of the GDR regime, and in particular those who died trying to escape to West Berlin. There is no cost to visit the memorial, and you can visit the outdoor exhibit any day of the week. There's also a visitor center with an observation tower and a documentation center. You could easily spend a couple of hours here, but I recommend using the 60-minute audio guide. At Brunnenstraße, there is an entrance to the Bernauer Straße U-Bahn station, where you can take the U8 southbound, just 2 stops to Weinmeisterstraße. You've now entered the Spandauer Vorstadt. This area was the first area in today's Berlin to be developed as a suburb outside of the old city walls. Prior to the Second World War, it was a hub of Jewish Berlin life. And today, remnants of that society can be found in the Neue Synagoge on Oranienburger Straße, the Memorial Jewish Cemetery on Große Hamburger Straße, and the Stolpersteine, small bronze plaques on the streets noting where past residents lived before they were shipped off to concentration camps. But arguably, the highlight of the district is a network of 8 interconnected courtyards called the Hackesche Höfe. It's a great place to get a sense of Berlin's love for the Hinterhofe. Built at the start of the 20th century, the complex was designed in the Jugendstil, which becomes apparent the moment you enter the first yard. In all, there are 41 different window styles, along with an array of brick and tile features taken together to emphasize flowing motions. To get a taste of some interior Art Nouveau, peek inside the Ascania Watches store or restaurant Hackesche Höfe, where you will find a large and small ballroom, both part of the original ensemble. There are guide stations throughout with audio clips on the history and style of the buildings. Today, the entire complex is a historically protected landmark. All in all, there are 32 shops selling everything from clothing and accessories to art and sweets. There's even an Ampelmann store. Additionally, there is a cinema, a theater, a billiards hall, 103 homes, 12 offices, as well as restaurants, cafes, and more. According to its website, the entire 16 square meter compound is the largest mixed-use compound in all of Germany. You also want to take a short walk through its smaller neighbor, Rosenhof, where you can see this beautiful staircase. The area offers even more, including the Volksbühne, the People's Theater, founded in 1914 by workers who wanted their own theater with affordable admission and plays that reflected their own situation more than traditional theater did. Another standout is the Sophienkirche, a Protestant church dating back to the start of the 18th century. American Martin Luther King Jr. visited here and gave a sermon. You won't want to miss Haus Schwarzenberg, a project of artists with an art gallery, a cinema, and several small museums. The backyards themselves are a museum of the early 1990s. This exhibition shows what the whole Spandauer Vorstadt looked like at the time of German reunification. Crumbling plaster, or naked brickwork, graffiti, and street art, and bizarre sculptures. Here you'll also find the Anne Frank Zentrum. There's even more here to see in this neighborhood. We have a self-guided tour that you could use to guide you around. Okay, it's time for lunch. You have a lot of options here, especially around Hackesche Markt. If you're interested in sampling Berlin's famous currywurst, then be sure to check out Curry 61 at Oranienburger Straße 6. Or satisfy your hunger for a Döner at Mustafa's Gemüse Döner, a kebab shop with a very good reputation. There are many other places to choose from. Okay, on with our itinerary. Head under the tracks on the west side of Hackesche Markt and walk along the River Spree. Cross Friedrichsbrücke, Friedrich's Bridge, onto Museum Island. Berlin's famous island of 5 museums is the result of Prussian ambitions for Berlin to be a world capital. These 5 museums exhibit impressive collections of art and artifacts, ranging from the ancient Egyptians to modern Europe. There isn't time to explore any of these memorials on this one-day itinerary, but take some time to visit the Colonnaded Garden, where you can admire a view of the neoclassical Alte National Gallery, the Old National Gallery. Museum Island stretches to Unter den Linden and today sits on what was once part of the original city settlement. So it's here where today's city started. Museum Island also includes the Berliner Dom, or the Berlin Cathedral. The cathedral's history dates back to the early 15th century when the Hohenzollern dynasty made Berlin its royal headquarters. In a way, it's Berlin's version of Westminster Abbey. And in my opinion, the Berliner Dom's observation deck offers one of the nicest views of the city. But at the time of filming, it costs €10 per adult and requires a vigorous climb, so we'll leave that off the itinerary for today. Instead, head across the street to the Berlin Palace, home of the Humboldt Forum. This was once the home of Brandenburg electors, Prussian kings, and German emperors from the 15th century until the end of the First World War. The reconstructed palace was opened in 2020, and today it houses the Humboldt Forum, a museum of world cultures, which includes some interesting exhibits, both free and ticketed. The palace offers a rooftop terrace for wonderful views of Unter den Linden, Museum Island, and the TV Tower. And it costs just €5, so we are including this in the itinerary. You should be able to just walk in, depending on the time of year, but better safe than sorry, book your spot online and in advance. There are also several free exhibits, and we have a short video on it, which we will link to in the description below. Onwards we go, and not too far away, just around the corner from the palace, is Bebelplatz. Formerly known as Opera Square, this public space features the Berlin State Opera, as well as some other architectural beauties including St. Hedwig's Cathedral, Berlin's Catholic cathedral. Another standout is the Law Library of Humboldt University, whose main campus is just across Unter den Linden. With all these eye-catching buildings, you could be forgiven for not noticing a small window in the ground. Peek inside, and you will find a vast space of empty shelves and bleached white. It's called the Sunken Library, and it's a memorial to the books burned by the Nazis in May of 1933 on the spot of one of those burnings. An estimated 20,000 books from writers, academics, poets, journalists, books from anyone the Nazis considered dangerous or un-German. And in this memorial, there's space for each book. There is a plaque with a quote taken from a Heinrich Heinz novel that predates the book burnings. Where they burn books, they will ultimately burn people as well. At the time of recording, St. Hedwig's Cathedral is under renovation and is slated to reopen in 2025. If it's open when you're here, it's worth at least a quick visit inside. I'll be filming a video of the cathedral when it opens, and we'll link to that video in the description below when it's done. And just around the corner from Bebelplatz is Gendarmenmarkt, a beautiful square that features a concert hall and two large and almost identical cathedrals. Gendarmenmarkt is named after the stables of a cavalry regiment of the Prussian King Friedrich Wilhelm I, which were located on the site. The Französische Dom, or French Cathedral, is not actually a cathedral, or even a church. It's a tower that was built in the early 18th century for the local French Protestant community that resided here. It's a beautiful interior that's worth a peek inside, and it has an observation deck that's worth skipping. There's also a museum on the French Huguenots. The Deutscher Dom, or the German Cathedral on the south side of the square, is also not a cathedral, though it once was a church. Today it houses a free exhibition on the turbulent history of German parliamentary democracy. And in the center of the square is the neoclassical Concert House, arguably Berlin's premier venue for classical music. You can only enter during events or for guided tours, which are only in German, so we will be moving on. And this next stop is delicious. It's Rauch's Chocolatier. This is a chocolate store you won't want to miss. It's a good opportunity for a souvenir or just an interesting browse. Their chocolate sculptures of iconic Berlin monuments have been photographed by many guests. This chocolate house has a sit-down cafe upstairs, specializing in, of course, hot chocolates, and the chocolate shop downstairs. Next, just 2 blocks away is Checkpoint Charlie, Berlin's best-known crossing point between Communist East and Democratic West Berlin. It was here that a tense standoff between American and Soviet tanks almost ignited World War III. The border posts, sandbags, and the signs warning you that you are leaving the American sector are all replicas. There is a museum that covers the checkpoint, the Cold War, escapes to the West, and more. There's also the Black Box exhibit, which is 16 media stations, a small movie theater, documents, and original objects to demonstrate the East-West conflict that dominated the international political arena after World War II. There's also the Wall Panorama, which shows scenes of East and West Berlin on an autumn day in the 1980s. All 3 have ticketed entries and will take some time to get through, so we don't include them on this one-day itinerary. However, you should spend some time browsing the photo gallery. 320 informational panels that include 175 large format photos accompanied by written narratives. The gallery focuses on 3 themes: the daring escape attempts at the border crossing, information about other memorial sites, and lastly the dramatic tank showdown. Now off to our next destination, but along the way you'll pass the Trabi Museum, which is dedicated to the iconic GDR vehicle. And just behind it is the Die Welt balloon, a 22-meter wide helium balloon that ascends 150 meters for great views of the city. But we are continuing on to a much more important landmark, Topography of Terror. The Topography of Terror Documentation Center is a free museum located on the former site of the Gestapo and SS headquarters and the Reich Security main office. The Topography of Terror can be a truly chilling experience, as one must confront the evil that took over Germany while standing at the site of the countless abuses against human dignity. Nowadays, little physical evidence of its dark past remains on the site, as Allied bombs damaged the buildings in 1945 and its remnants were torn down in 1956. Part of the site is situated along Niederkirche Straße, formerly Prinz Albert Straße, which was the border between the Soviet and American sectors in post-war Berlin. As a result, the Topography of Terror is home to the longest stretch of the Berlin Wall in the city center. You could be engrossed here for hours, but a walk through the exterior grounds can be done in 30 minutes or less. Now we're going to head north a few blocks. Can you believe that below this rather unremarkable parking lot for local residents once existed an air raid shelter? And this was no run-of-the-mill shelter. This was the location of the gardens of the Reich Chancellery, and roughly 9 meters underground was the Führer bunker. And this is where Adolf Hitler and his staff relocated to as the Battle of Berlin raged on. And this is where it all ended once and for all for the German leader. All that exists is a plaque describing the bunker system and showing a map of the area during the Second World War. And if you continue around the corner, you can also visit the memorial to Johann Georg Else, a German worker who attempted to assassinate Adolf Hitler and other high-ranking Nazi officials in 1938. And just one single block away is arguably Berlin's most important landmark. The purposefully provocative name of this memorial says it all. It's the sheer size of the installation that first impresses. Over 19,000 square meters, over 200,000 square feet. The field consists of 2,711 blocks, which are all roughly 2.5 meters wide by 1 meter long. It's only their heights above the ground that differ. The ground throughout the memorial is uneven and rises and falls like a wave. Other than the memorial's name, there are no symbols, no names of victims, no names of concentration camps, and no mentions of Jews or Judaism. The words Holocaust or Shoah don't appear anywhere as well. Even the number of concrete slabs has no significance. It's just a number that could fit in the allotted space. The abstractness and openness of the monument are by design. The architect wanted to convey a sense of discomfort and confusion and order without reason. The memorial has to be experienced by walking through it and dealing with the topic of the Holocaust in one's own personal way. Under the surface of the memorial is the Information Center, a free museum that documents the persecution and extermination of the Jews of Europe. You could spend as much time here as you need. Brandenburg Gate. It's a monumental neoclassical gate and is arguably the icon of Berlin. In the 18th century, Berlin abandoned its medieval wall, which had lost its defensive purpose, and a new wall was built, this time for customs. This new wall had many gates. The gates were named after the cities the outgoing roads led to. The Brandenburg Gate is named after the city of Brandenburg an Havel, just west of Berlin. The Brandenburg Gate is the only customs gate left from this era. It's 26 meters high by 65 meters wide, and it is supported by 6 door columns on both fronts. The figure on top is a quadriga. Standing on the chariot is Victoria, the Roman goddess of victory. She holds the Iron Cross with imperial eagle perched on top. Just underneath is a relief symbolically celebrating the victories of Prussia, with figures such as Nike, the Greek goddess of victory, and Hercules, the god of strength. Inside of the 5 passageways are reliefs on both sides of each wall for a total of 20. All reliefs depict scenes of Hercules and were designed to pay homage to Frederick the Great. On both the southern and northern sides of the gate are column porticos, where you will find 2 additional sculptural pieces, Mars, the god of war, and Minerva, the goddess of wisdom and the protector of Berlin. The small temple on the left once housed guards, but is today a tourist office. The one on the right once housed tax collectors, but is today home to the Room of Silence, a meditation space. 2 things not to miss. Check out the DZ Bank building to the southwest, where you will find a whale sculpture by Frank Gehry, and roughly 80 meters to the east is a plaque near where US President Ronald Reagan called on the Soviets to tear down this wall. That concludes our day. Now it's time to head back to your hotel and freshen up for dinner. We have a post listing all of the top German, Austrian restaurants in Berlin as recommended by members of our Berlin Travel Tips Facebook group. There are dozens of options to choose from throughout the city, so there's bound to be at least one convenient to you. And for the nightcap, I recommend visiting the dome and terrace of the Reichstag building. Visiting the Reichstag building is a must-do for every first-time visitor to Berlin. Its glass dome affords a 360-degree view of the city, as well as a unique bird's-eye view of the plenary chamber below. The audio tour, which takes roughly 20 minutes to complete, will guide you to the very top of the dome and back down. There is also an open-air rooftop terrace, which also provides views of the city. Tickets to the dome are required and are best booked well in advance from the Bundestag's website, especially for peak travel dates. You can even have dinner at Käfer, the restaurant located on the terrace next to the dome. Dinner reservations include tickets to the dome. The dome is usually open to roughly midnight. Last entry is just before. And that's it, folks. My one-day sightseeing heavy itinerary for visiting Berlin. I hope that it provides you with some ideas of how you can spend one day or your first day in Berlin. Be sure to like this video and share it with anyone you think would benefit from it. I really appreciate it. And subscribe to our channel and hit the bell notification if you'd like to get more Berlin content. And in this video, you can see my top 10 choices for getting bird's eye views of the city. See you in the next video. Tschüss!